Testing, 1, 2, 3, testing.
Hello, folks. I'd like to call this meeting to order and like to start with a land acknowledgement.
The lands we know today as the Township of Centre Wellington have been home to Indigenous peoples since time immemorial. We acknowledge that we are on the treaty lands and traditional territory of the Anishinaabe and the Haudenosaunee. With increasing encroachment by non-Indigenous settlers in the Township of Centre Wellington, the Anishinaabe and Haudenosaunee could not continue their traditional lifestyle and settled in their villages along the Credit River and in the Grand River Valley. These Indigenous nations uphold their treaty rights within our jurisdiction. Today, the Township of Centre Wellington remains home to Indigenous peoples from across Turtle Island. We are grateful to have the opportunity to share and respect Mother Earth and are committed to building constructive and cooperative relationships with Indigenous nations.
Thank you, Councillor Walton. Addendums and corrections to the agenda. Disclosure of pecuniary interest under the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act.
I'd like to declare a potential conflict of interest with agenda item 11.5, which is the urban boundary settlement expansion. Yes, 11.5. I have that right. Yes, 11.5. Some of the lands that have been requested to come into the urban boundary and some that have been denied, I guess, are being represented by MHPC Planning, and my spouse is a partner at MHPC Planning. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wilton. I'd like to as well admit a conflict of interest as it relates to my connection to River Fessalora and use of Bissell Park, and there's a discussion to go on a little bit later on in the meeting on that one. So we'll move down to item number 5, closed session, and I'll read this, that the Council of Township of Centre Wellington convene in a closed session in accordance with Section 2392C of the Municipal Act 2001 as amended it to consider a proposed or pending acquisition of lands by the municipality. Do you have a mover for that? Councillor Wilton, seconder on that. Councillor Jefferson, any comments, questions as released that? All those in favor? So moved. So we're going to go into closed session for probably about a half an hour. I'll just be downstairs so you can do whatever you want for the half hour and then we'll be back, but we'll try to be about that time. Okay, welcome back to Council. We have some matters arising from closed session, and I'll read the recommendation that the Council of Township of Centre Wellington authorize the Mayor and Clerk to execute an agreement of purchase sale between the Corporation of Township of Centre Wellington and James Therm Construction Limited to purchase a portion of land municipally known as 6591 Third Line West, Elora, for the purpose of a future municipal supply well facility in the amount of $37,000. And that the Council of Township of Centre Wellington authorize the Mayor and Clerk to execute an agreement of purchase and sale between the Corporation and Township of Centre Wellington and Elmer and Patricia Frey to purchase a portion of land municipally known as 6771 Irvine Street, Salem, for the purpose of future municipal supply well facility in the amount of $92,500. Is there a mover for that? Councillor Evoy, a seconder on that. Councillor Craddock, any comments, questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? So moved. Okay, now we'll move down to item 8. And item 8, which is presentation and announcements and the sports team recognition. And we have 4 groups here today, which we're very excited about in terms of their involvement in lacrosse and winning championships. So I think we'll, because they're all sort of out there, we're going to bring one group in at a time and congratulate them. So so I'll just move around and we'll call in Casey and his group first. I'll bring all this out here.
Casey and
sit down.
You guys are all good there. Okay. Let me just find this first one here. Casey. Okay. So we have Casey Barron. So Casey works with the township here, and maybe you can introduce who the lads are here today and explain exactly a little bit, and we'll move from there.
Perfect. Why don't I'm going to actually introduce Spencer McKay. He's going to say a few words, if that's all right, Sean.
Okay.
And he'll kind of speak on behalf of our team. Spence, no pressure.
Good evening. My name is Spencer McKay, and with me are Connor Beerns and Taylor Halls. And we are here on behalf of the U13 Riverhawks. We would like to say a few words about the past season we just had. We are very grateful to live in such a great community that supported our team. One of my favorite moments was when our local restaurant, the Birdalbin, let us serve their customers for an evening, and then they donated the proceeds from that night to our team. They didn't even make us pay for the glasses we broke. One of my favorite moments, we were also very lucky to have 2 of the best non-parent coaches, Dan Keene and Ken Colson, who committed to our team and helped teach us skills and drills they had learned from when they played. Even their families dedicated their weekends to coming to our games and tournaments to cheer us on. From the beginning, our team worked very hard at practice and game, with the goal of getting to compete in the A finals at the Ontario Lacrosse Festival. We had a team slogan, no deposit, no return. We wore this on our back of our t-shirts as a reminder that you get what you put into it. We knew that we would be able to compete with the bigger centers because we have put extra time in. We would meet at schoolyards and backyards playing with our friends, then go home and hit the rebounder some more. Our coaches went above and beyond, coaching and supporting us to make sure that every player was working to their best potential. Any time before or after practice, you could find Jeremy Machin, Ross Willoughby, Bobby McDonald, or Casey Beerns spending extra time working with anybody who asked for help. To get to the provincials, we had to play in 2 tough qualifier weekends in London and Whitby to battle the top 12 teams in OLA. They were 11 hard-fought games, and we secured our spot as a top seed going on to the championships. There we played in the final 6. We all we went all the way to win all of Ontario championships. Drew Adams, Tyler Airdrie, Connor Bierns, Daniel Desmiles, Drew Ferguson, Taylor Halls, Sidney Heisman, Chase McDonald, Kane Machin, Spencer McKay, Sam Pagan, Mitchell Reddyhoff, Ronan Willoughby, Brennan Wright, Jack Wright, Cole Amy, and Gavin Castle brought the A championship to Centre Wellington for the first time in Centre Wellington minor lacrosse history.
Well, that's fantastic. I really appreciate you coming out. It's not easy to do this, come and public speak. You can just talk to our counselors and talk to me all the time about it. But it's, really appreciate all your efforts, and you have a great coach. And I know with the other coaches as well, just good people. So really appreciate you showing this community very proud. Again, part of the community would like to again thank you for all your hard work. And we're going to present you with this as well.
Nice. Thank you.
And we're going to take some pictures, and we also have a check as well. So,
Those are good.
yes. So come on up over. We'll stand here, and we've got a couple on both sides. Shadow, you're up here too. Okay. And if you hold that, that's always good. You gotta. And we're all good. Okay.
Okay. Say lacrosse. Lacrosse.
Thank you very much. Thanks, guys.
Thank you very much.
So let's do Connor, you guys, when you guys carry that. Okay.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you. Okay.
Scared.
Okay. Next, we have the Centre Wellington minor lacrosse team under 15 girls.
Yeah. Hi, ladies.
Somebody gonna say a few words again?
I don't know, Coach, really, does anyone want, are your girls going to say anything? Yep. There you go.
Okay.
Perfect.
Thank you for supporting our U15 Girls Lacrosse record-making season. We really appreciate your support.
Well,
I also just wanted to say these girls did an amazing job. We had a third of the team that had never played lacrosse, and they were able to go and win 3 out of their 4 tournaments, and it was a really great accomplishment.
well, thank you very much for supporting our community and sending all those good vibes out there. And it's really important that we share all our love of sport out there and demonstrate to the rest of the world that we're a very competitive community that way. So really appreciate it, and really appreciate you coming here today. So we have here for you guys is one of these, and we're going to take a picture. Well, against this wall. So if you want to kind of huddle in here, and we'll get somebody who wants to. Here, you hold on that side. I'll hold that side. Okay.
Okay. Excellent.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thanks very much. Thank you.
Thanks, girls.
Doesn't every team have a check?
No, there was one for the 3. So okay. So now we have the under 17 boys provincial D champions. Okay. Somebody going to say something?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mayor Waters and members of council, my name is Sam Harkness, and I'm joined today by Ryerson Doucette and Thompson Anger. On behalf of the Riverhawks U17-2 team, we would like to thank you for your donation. Many of us have been playing lacrosse since we were 3 or 4, and it was our first time winning at provincials, so that was very exciting. We would also like to thank our great young coaches, Nick, Brett, and Jonah, as well as trainer Kevin, managers Jody and Crystal for all that they did for our team this season. We were proud to represent Centre Wellington.
Again, on behalf of council, Township of Centre Wellington, I want to thank you for all your efforts that way, and just fantastic. You can share your joy of lacrosse with the rest of the world and show them that we're, again, an extremely competitive community. Anyways, come on over here. We're going to take a picture. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Here you go. And it just keeps on coming. This next one is the Allura Mohawks Junior B, Ontario champions, national champions. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, yes. Welcome.
On behalf of the Allura Mohawks, I'd just like to say thank you to the mayor and the council for their support this season, and yeah, thank you.
Thanks. You gotta hold it up. Come on. Again, on behalf of Township Centre Wellington, Allura Council, Allura Council back in the day, sorry, Centre Wellington Council, really appreciate all your efforts, and you made the community very proud. So looking forward to next year. I know I've already heard you've already started hard training, dry land. So anyways, again, on appreciation of the community, thank you for all your efforts. So if we want to come over, take a picture, and we've got a couple of things to check here. So I'll give that to you. Okay, maybe we'll put that, maybe just, yeah, where do you want to put that, guys?
Hold it up. Yeah, just like that.
Okay.
You guys are excellent. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
And I'll take that.
Thank you.
Thanks again.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're going down to item 8.2, County Council Report, and we're going to welcome Councillor Steve O'Neill. Hello, Steve.
We'll try to follow. That's quite a lineup you had in here previously or earlier. Anyways, good evening, everyone. Couple of things I want to talk about. Starting on January 1st, 2025, a minimum fee of $10 will be applied if you drop off waste or recycling at our landfill and transfer stations. Site attendants will weigh loads brought in to determine the fee that will be charged. Any loads lighter than 74 kilograms, approximately 160 pounds, will be charged the minimum fee. Over the 74 kilograms is charged at $135 per ton. An example is 200 kilograms, about 440 pounds, would be $27. If you're going to bring bag garbage to the sites and not use the curbside pickup, don't use the yellow bags. You would be paying twice. Put it in a black bag. You are still able to drop off leaf and yard waste, tires, household hazardous waste, and electronics for free. On July 1st, 2025, producers are going to be responsible for blue box recycling pickup in Wellington County. I've brought this before to council. When we accept recyclable material at Riverston landfill or the transfer stations, we will then have to pay to truck it to a recycling depot. The producers will not pick it up at our sites. If dropped off recyclables tonnage at our transfer stations stay the same as previous years, it will cost the county residents about $187,000 to get it to a recycling depot. If you do not want to use curbside pickup, the $10 minimum fee will help mitigate the extra expense to take it to the recycling depot. Residents will not see a change at this time for curbside pickup. Many municipalities throughout Ontario have already gone through the blue box transition. Wellington County is in the last group of municipalities to go through the process. When the producers take over recycling, businesses will not be serviced. The county is going to contract out and pay for our downtown businesses to continue to receive recycling pickup. We're also working to get pricing for pickup, recycling for businesses who are not in our downtown cores. For example, an office that would be 2 blocks off the main street that wouldn't get picked up by the producers. We're going to look and see what that's going to cost and make a decision on if that's feasible. Waterloo Region is $12 minimum to go into their landfills. Simcoe County, $15. Guelph and Halton are $10. Just to get an idea of what other municipalities are doing. Next happy thing, automated speed enforcement is going to be piloted throughout the county. Signs announcing the placement of cameras must be up for 90 days before going live. In Centre Wellington, it will be set up on County Road 18 from Highway 6 east to McTavish Street. J.D. Hogarth is in that zone. Auto speed enforcement can only be set up in community safety zones and school zones. Also in November, we'll be discussing the tender for upgrades to the Elora transfer station. That tender closes on November 1st. Previously, when we got a price on the upgrades, council was not willing to approve the amount of money that it was going to take to do it at that time. And that's all I have. You might have a question or two, so I'll...
Thank you, Steve. Councillor McDonald.
Through you, Mayor Waters, thank you for that fulsome update about our solid waste. I picked up this fancy card from our transfer station. They're handing them out. It actually has a lot of great information on it, so I thank County for that. I noticed in Waterloo Region member municipalities for pickup at households, they're not being charged a per bag usage. I don't know what they're doing, but...
It will be on their tax bill.
Yeah, I'm sure. But I have had a few residents reach out to me to say, well, rather they just put it in my taxes and not worry about these bags, because the bags have fallen apart and those things. And I know they're replaced, no problem. So I just wanted you to know that. The other thing was... So leaf and all of that, as you said, you can still go into the transfer station, correct, drop those off and no issues. Okay, correct. Fair enough. Thank you.
Okay. Just on the, paying it on your taxes or by the yellow bag. The yellow bag was put in place to try and get people to produce less waste. And also if you're a single person in a household, you would be paying the same amount in Waterloo Region as a family of 6 for garbage pickup. And some people would think that's not good either. So that's why the county went that way.
Any other comments or questions for Steve? Oh, you did your job, Mr. O'Neill. I'm very impressed. Thank you very much. Okay, now we'll move down to item 8.3, Councillors Committee updates. Is there any updates from Council? Councillor Jefferson.
Thank you, Mayor Waters. For the Elora BIA update, they just finished their Candlelight Elora on last Thursday night, October 24th, and had a great turnout. Their AGM is coming up November 12th at 6:30. Where they're having it is going to be determined. The annual Starlight shopping dates have been set, November 21st, 22nd, 28th, and 29th from 11 to 9 p.m. And then also the Elora Lions Santa Claus Parade is November 30th and 6:15 p.m. And if you're wanting to do a float or anything, reach out directly to the Elora Lions. So that's what I have right now. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Wilton.
Thank you for the Fergus BIA. They had their Witches Night out on Friday and Haunted Halloween Walk on Saturday with over 800 kids out in the main street of Fergus, so it was quite fun. They are also working on some more downtown lighting for the storefronts, which should be nice this year. And their AGM is also on November 12th at 7 o'clock p.m. at the Stone Gable building in Fergus on St. Andrew Street. And they do have sip and shop nights booked, but I forgot to look up the dates, but I bet Councillor Jefferson could fill those in for me. Maybe.
It's the 3 Friday nights.
3 Friday nights in December. Perfect. Look at that teamwork. Thank you.
Any other comments or any other information from the various committees? I will comment on the DEI. I was at the DEI committee, and one of the main items there was talking about sports. Sports logos. We had a very fulsome discussion about that, and one of the suggestions was that the banners possibly go back up with an explanation of sort of the history of the Mohawks and how we're moving towards how things move along, and with the idea that the team changes possibly their name. So we're at the point now where there need a further discussion. So the DEI committee with the Mohawks have a further discussion. So this looks like it's moving on, and it's a very positive. It seems very positive. So, and obviously today we had the Mohawks as well, and that was also a very joyous occasion as well. So, nothing else on that end of things. So now we're going to move down to delegation, and 9.1, Genevieve Scott from Custa Planning Consultants. I hope I got that correct. Close. Okay. So welcome, Genevieve. And you have 10 minutes.
Thank you very much, Mayor Waters and council and staff, for this opportunity to speak this evening. So my name is Genevieve Scott. I work at Cuesta Planning Consultants, and we are the planning consultant for Braymark Homes. Braymark Homes is the owner of the lands described as 965 Gartshore Street, and so they're just on the north end of the Fergus Urban Centre boundary. On behalf of Braymark, we have been actively engaged in the County of Wellington OP update, and it is our opinion that the subject lands are ideally located and suited for future growth, and should be included in the recommended settlement area boundary expansions, which are to be endorsed by Council for county's consideration. It's not moving for me. Yep. Perfect. Thank you very much, Lisa. So just to give you an idea of where we are, again, the subject lands are in the north part of Fergus, just abutting the urban boundary. The surrounding land use to the south of the subject lands is a residential subdivision known as the Ben Nevis Estate subdivision. East of the subject lands is a 20-acre parcel that has been recently acquired by the township for a public works yard. Further east of that is the business park. On the west, directly west of the subject lands, some of that farmland has been recommended by the township planning staff to be included within the urban boundary through the latest staff report in that regard. And those lands have been historically used for agricultural purposes. North is also agricultural land and some woodland and wetland to the northeast. In the surrounding area, there are a number of parks already, and there's some local shopping and services in the area as well, primarily along the Highway 6 frontage, including the Freshco grocery store and the Walmart, which are both within walking distance of the site. With respect to the subject lands themselves, they have been used historically for agricultural purposes. However, with the recent purchase by the township of the 20 acres for the public works yard, this has left those lands somewhat fragmented and landlocked with no appropriate access for farming equipment. So this provides an opportunity, a great opportunity in our opinion, for the subject lands to be repurposed for residential purposes. There we go. So just to give council a bit of background, our office, as well as Maritech Engineering and Braymark, began looking at this property and the viability of it in late 2021, early 2022. And in addition to a background review, Braemark has also retained natural heritage and cultural heritage experts to initiate required studies at the site. We also took a look at land use compatibility from an agricultural perspective and completed MDS calculations to ensure there was compatibility in that regard. So the concept that you can see right now, in late 2022, Braemark started some discussions with Polo Corps, who owns the lands to the west, to explore the possibility of a joint concept across these two sites. And what you see before you is an earlier high-level concept. I believe Polo Corps has modified some of their plans on their parcel, but this gives you an idea of how these two lands could be developed together in a very integrated manner with very cohesive road network, opportunities for integrated stormwater infrastructure, and those types of things. Of course, there's other opportunities at the site, and there has been some discussion of the possibility of a shared community facility at the site. So we'd be excited to think about the possibility of a school location here, or also opportunities for aging in place with a long-term care facility at the site. So the long story short, of course, Braemark wants to work with the township as well as its neighbor to implement the concept really of a complete community at this location. So some of the, as we know, as the county has been going through its OP update, it's developed criteria that they're looking at when it comes to reviewing the merits of boundary expansion proposals. We just want to take a quick look at some of those key policies. So the first one is to sustain well. And so really what we're talking about when it comes to these policies we're looking at the protection of natural and cultural resources, whether that is prime agricultural land, natural features, source water, or archaeological features. So how does the Braemark proposal, how does it measure up to this criteria? So with respect to agriculture, as I've indicated earlier, the on-site agricultural resources have already been compromised through the creation of the public works yard. We did take a look at, as I'd said, the surrounding land use. Most of the barns in the area have already been decommissioned, so there's really no MDS conflict if this parcel was to be developed. With respect to natural heritage features on the site, the field work that has been completed for the site has outlined 2 natural heritage features on the site. These will be retained as part of the development with appropriate setbacks to ensure protection. Source water is another area that is to be considered, and really residential land use is an appropriate land use in a wellhead protection area versus really traditional farming practices and those types of uses, which could have an impact on groundwater. The field work for the archaeological portion has been completed, and nothing has been found on the site. So we feel that we've demonstrated that the subject lands can be developed without any significant impact on any natural and cultural resources. The next policy to consider are the Live Well policies, which deal primarily with creating complete and healthy communities. So we're looking at a range of uses, lots of housing types, and convenient access to the necessities for daily living. So Braemark proposal, it will certainly offer a broad range of housing options. And if we look at the site as a joint concept, there's an opportunity for mixed use along the Highway 6 frontage as well. There's already some parks that could be just south of the site that could be easily sort of integrated and built upon within the site itself. So we feel that this proposal is certainly well positioned to implement and support the goals of affordable housing as well as complete communities. So the final criteria that the county has asked everyone to look at is the grow well criteria. And this has to do really with optimizing existing and planned infrastructure. So as I indicated, Braemark had retained Meritech Engineering to complete a background review in this regard. And the background review had indicated that the subject lands were already within the defined servicing boundary for Fergus, which strongly suggests that this area has already been considered for future expansion in the planning documents. The background review also took a look at wastewater and water infrastructure and indicated that the developments could certainly be accommodated by the existing infrastructure. The as constructed plans for the Ben Nevis Estates development also show that sanitary sewer, storm sewer, and the water main have already been installed to the south property line of these lands. So these lands are essentially subject to the necessary approvals under the Planning Act, shovel ready. So in summary, the subject lands represent a logical addition to Fergus. Including them would be represent good land use planning. The development could meet all the criteria that has been set out by the County of Welland when looking at these requests. Moving forward, Braemark would want to work with the township in developing the site out. And the first step, of course, is in this process is for these lands to be included in the Fergus settlement area boundary. The planning process should provide more opportunities for public input. The process needs to be fair and transparent. And we feel it would be very helpful for township staff to develop some type of rating or point system which ranks the various requests. This would really go a long way in helping to understand the basis and rationale for some of the township's recommendations to date in this regard. We therefore request Council to defer its decision on the staff report before them today in order that further evaluation of these requests and this specific request can be undertaken. Thank you.
Thank you, Genevieve. Any questions for clarification from Council? Seeing none, thank you for your presentation. So we'll move down to 9.2, David Galbraith from Up Consulting Limited. Welcome, David. And you have 10 minutes or less.
All right. Good evening, mayors and members of council. My name is Dave Galbraith. I am a planner and president of Up Consulting, based out of the city of Kitchener. I've been retained by Polo Corp with respect to their lands at 968 David Street North and 6581 Highway 6 in just north of Fergus. As you would have heard in his delegation a couple of weeks ago, my client is supportive of the recommendation to include their southern lands as part of the settlement area boundary expansion. I think it's SABE Area E, but they are requesting further consideration of the northern portion of their land, which is 6581 Highway 6. I'll move to the next slide. So I've prepared a brief presentation tonight to walk through the location of the site. I won't dwell on that too much because the previous delegate did give a very thorough overview of the context of the site and them being neighbors to this property. I'll talk about the recommended SABE Area E, which again applies to the southern portion of the lands. And then I'll talk about the merits of the proposed development concept that has been included as part of the various submissions to date with respect to this exercise. So again, the subject properties, municipally known as 968 David Street North and 6581 Highway 6, which is just north of the Fergus settlement area boundary. You can see the location of the property on the screen here with the dividing line midway between the two properties. In total, the entire consolidation is approximately 100 acres or 40 hectares. of which a portion of the lands are within a natural heritage boundary, which is in the southeast corner of the properties. As I'd mentioned, the site is directly abutting the existing urban area of the Fergus settlement area, primarily surrounded by residential to the west and to the south, employment lands further to the east, and then agricultural uses to the north. The site is currently contains 2 dwellings, which are associated with the agricultural use of the property. The property also fronts directly along Highway 6 and provides convenient access to a range of community uses to the south. So through the municipal exercise to date and comprehensive review process, staff have recommended that the southern portion of the consolidation be included within SABE Area E, with the exception of the lands that are impacted by the woodlot feature in the southeast corner. You can see the delineation of SABE Area E on the screen here in yellow. This recommendation is certainly supported by my client, but with also a recommendation to consider the northern portion as well. The following slide will go through some of the rationale for consideration of the northern lands, but at a high level would support the provision of additional housing within this area in the community, the build out of the 2 sites comprehensively, and being able to manage matters such as servicing and stormwater in an effective manner. And beyond that, it would allow for a more meaningful park space within this area as well. So in advance of this meeting tonight, I have prepared a letter that would have been forwarded to council in advance of this meeting. And as part of that letter, I've taken a look at the evaluation criteria that have been used to identify potential expansion areas. And as you would see, similar circumstances apply to the northern lands as would to the southern. Ability to service the lands. In this case, the northern lands are actually unencumbered by any natural heritage features, such as shown in the southeast corner here. But beyond that, as part of the submissions to date, we've looked at various different concepts, and we feel that by including both the southern and northern lands, there's an opportunity here to really create a robust street network, diversity of uses, and then the ability to manage stormwater more comprehensively. You can see within this plan in the bottom portion of the concept drawing is a large stormwater management block, which would be used, of course, for managing stormwater, but also the amenities that are provided along with it, which often include walking trails. And then as part of this concept as well, you can see a very sizable park block that would be provided primarily within the northern portion of the plan. So by having additional lands within this area, there is the ability to provide a more meaningful park space. And within this plan, there's also been consideration for a mixed-use block that would back onto the park space, and some preliminary ideas that have come out of that would include some limited retail or restaurant uses, as well as the potential for a daycare within this space. So in our opinion, including the northern lands does offer various benefits here, and again, helps foster the idea of providing a complete community. In addition to this, from a transportation perspective, it is also advantageous to include the northern properties to provide various exits out onto Highway 6. Here you can see the proposed spacing with the northern entry point provided really on Plan North, and providing a great degree of separation between those entrances. So in addition to the merits of the plan itself, there are many other considerations that council has to look at here. One being recent policy changes. There is the new provincial planning statement, which took effect all of a week and a half ago, which does provide some discretion on how settlement area boundaries are considered. The PPS does provide municipalities with the ability to plan for up to 30 years, whereas here the planning horizon that has been embraced by this exercise appears to be 20 years, and the ability to rely on Ministry of Finance projections, whereas the older growth plan forecasts have been used here, which is certainly allowable within this policy context as well. So in conclusion, we certainly agree with the recommendation to include the southern lands within the urban boundary, but then we do also request further consideration by council to include the northern portion. And with that, I'm available for any questions you might have.
Thank you, David. Questions for clarification from council? Seeing none, thank you very much for your presentation. Next, I would like to invite Cache Holmes up. Marcus, is Marcus here? Or is he online on Zoom? Oh, hi, Marcus. So Marcus, welcome. You have 10 minutes or less to present your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and council members. Just want to make sure everybody can hear me okay. Just a thumbs up.
Yes.
Excellent. Thank you. And I apologize for not being there in person this evening. I'm dealing with a sick toddler and an infant that decided to crack out about 6 or 7 teeth in the span of 10 days. So if you hear any loud screaming or yelling, just please disregard it. Anyways, again, I apologize for not being there in person. I just wanted to give you a little bit of insight into who Cache is as a community member and as a home builder. We've been in the industry for over 40 years, building visionary communities, bringing those communities to life. And one of our main objectives and main goals is, making the dream of home ownership a reality, particularly for the younger generations across the province. I think you've heard a lot of that over the last couple of weeks in some of the speakers that have come to your attention. You heard from Karen from Habitat for Humanity last week with Guelph Wellington. She pointed out a pretty staggering stat that 43% of individuals between the ages of 20 and 29 years old are still living at home with their parents, which is a pretty scary thought, in many regards. So we've seen similar trends in our consultation and engagement with the industry at public consultations and industry events. Young adults are being faced with a lot of challenges as it relates to home ownership and a lot of sacrifices as well. Some of them are having to go as far as sacrificing having a family in order to purchase a home, which is something that we should all feel is just unacceptable. Everybody should have the ability to purchase a home, have a family, and grow that family however you see fit. If you're having to sacrifice one for the other, it's just something that we should all feel very strongly about and view as unacceptable as industry partners. We also heard from Marlene Busick last week, who I thought spoke very well from St. Vincent de Paul. And she painted a pretty vivid picture that all of her grandkids, all of her children have to live so far away from her that it's a challenge for them just to come visit her. Living hours away from her, living hours away from their jobs. And that's something that we can be part of a solution as opposed to being part of a problem. Cache is definitely part of that, wants to be part of that solution. We want to be at the table with Centre Wellington. I'm going to share my screen if you don't mind, if I have the ability. Can everyone see that? Sorry about that. Did I lose everyone for a second?
No, we're good. Go ahead there,
Okay.
Marcus.
Great. Sorry about that. So Cache wants to ultimately be part of a solution, work collaboratively with the municipality, and come to solutions that benefit the municipality in the long run. One of the things that we heard in particular from Centre Wellington is the objective of not wanting to have to fragment, prime agricultural lands and not wanting to have to come back in the next, let's say, 3 or 4 years from now to bring additional lands in. let's make the right decision one time. Let's do it the right way once, and let's not have to come back to the drawing board 3, 4, 5 times because we haven't planned appropriately at this particular time. I think the staff report in that regard, disregards some of the Ministry of Finance numbers and downplays those numbers. Yes, they weren't available at the original drafting of the report, but they're available now. And they've been made available for a strategic reason. The population projections in those Ministry of Finance numbers, particularly for Centre Wellington and Guelph, are approximately 37,000 people higher than they were in the original documents put out by the growth plan. The growth plan will cease to exist, or already ceases to exist as of October 20th. So to disregard those numbers and say that just because there's a policy in the PPS that might allow for it, that we shouldn't focus on those numbers, I think is a little irresponsible. And it begs the question that, again, we might be back at the table in a very quick period of time to talk about those numbers. Our lands, again, I think I've spoken in general, but our lands are located at the north part of Elora, at the southeast corner of Nickel Road 15 and Irvine Street. They're immediately north of the Keating lands. They're immediately east of the Clayton subdivision, which we are actively developing and planning for. And in our opinion, they represent a logical rounding out, infilling, and extension of the urban boundary. They'll be able to draw on services from the existing services along Irvine. They're being planned collaboratively with the lands, our Clayton lands for stormwater management. And they'll be able to draw on services very easily from the Ainley subdivision, Irvine Street, and the Clayton lands. In that process, we've worked collaboratively with staff. We've worked collaboratively with the school board. Again, this is our draft plan for the Clayton lands across the street. We're going to be working with the school board to deliver them a soccer field. Some people might be a little taken back that we're getting rid of a ski hill, but we're working actively with them to give them a soccer field through a grading exercise, and ultimately planning for a master plan vision between ourselves and Tom Keating. This plan that's in front of you right now represents about 1,400 units. It could be more. Again, we'd love to have the dialogue with the planning staff, but again, it's easily serviced, and it can be broken up into multiple phases to phase over a number of years, so that it's not all done in one shot. I expect that to happen, but it can be done holistically, and it can be done over several years. But again, not fragmented. You're talking about 2 pieces of land. You're not impacting any other prime agricultural land, and services are literally at the doorstep. We've demonstrated that to staff. We've submitted a number of servicing and technical memos. And to be honest, we've received very little feedback, which is a little discouraging. A lot of work has gone into those memos to demonstrate exactly what's on your screen. But the services are basically at the doorstep. In saying all that, and in addition to that, the staff report that was written by staff also failed to recognize that there was community planning study areas put in place by the county several years ago. The lands that we're talking about today in the north part of Elora, I've identified them as C and T, are identified in a blue hatch in the county's official plan. Those lands were already flagged for a community planning study area or additional growth. So strategically, they make sense. They're bound by existing roads, they're bound by existing infrastructure, and they're a rounding out or infilling of an expansion area, as opposed to extending south into, we'll call it vacant prime agricultural land with very little services in play. Again, we want to be part of a solution. We want to be part of dialogue with the community and council and staff. We want to make sure that the council aren't having to come back to the drawing board and do exactly what they don't want to do, which is open up more prime agricultural land to accommodate the growth that's forecasted. We believe the report that's written in front of you and the recommendation will do exactly that. That, in the next 2, 3, 4 years, when you're back at the board or back at the drawing board, you'll be talking about bringing in more prime agricultural land, which I think is a risk for this council and for this municipality. So respectfully, we'd ask that you defer the decision, not necessarily reject it, defer the recommendation, continue to work with staff, have staff work with the county to consider the Ministry of Finance projections. They've only been released about a week and a half ago. Consider those numbers as they relate to Center Wellington, particularly Elora, and let's see what the population numbers look like. Let's see what that lands needs looks like with those new numbers. I think that's the responsible thing to do. Let's not rush a decision through, make a decision that's going to require us to come back to the drawing board in a very short period of time, and let's have the dialogue about what needs to happen. Anyway, I'm happy to answer any questions about Cache, our project, or anything else, and I really appreciate the time this evening.
Thank you, Marcus. Yes, clarification questions. Yep, thank you.
Mayor Waters, thank you for your presentation. You mentioned soccer fields and working with the school board. So you've already had those conversations?
As it relates to the Clayton development, yes, we've already had those discussions.
Thank you.
Any other clarification comments? Okay. Thank you, Marcus, for your presentation. You have a good night and keep care of that little one.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, we're going to move down to item 9.4, and we're going to welcome Rob Stovall from Stovall and Associates. Rob. Welcome, Rob.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, staff, thank you very much. We have a couple maps that I think my sons provided earlier tonight. We can pull one of them up. So while that's getting loaded up, I'll fire it off here. So I'm Rob Stovall. I'm here on behalf of a company, RSR Inc., and I have my two sons in tow with me, Rob Jr. and Scott, a couple former lacrosse players, coaches. Excellent presentation today, certainly by that first group there. They're going to make us look bad, I think. So my delegation is regarding the urban boundary expansion and the staff report, which I understand is going to be deliberated and possibly resolved tonight. Our site is just small compared to everyone else that's coming in here. We got 5 hectares that we're asking to be included in the urban boundary. It's south of the high school and east of the South Fergus on Scotland Street. Now, as part of the South Fergus secondary plan area, that entire area, the road, will eventually be ripped up and serviced to some account. And I think that it would make a good decision to comprehensively plan for that area and rebuild that road, put the active transportation planning in place there, and provide for a complete community. And I think that with the inclusion of our lands, we'd be able to work with the staff and provide the relevant financing for our portion to help bring that along. There are a couple different ways to service it. One's through the South Fergus secondary plan area and possibly to the existing services to the north. We don't know. We're unable to discuss any further servicing matters with the township staff. So those are the two options that we've been advised that we could possibly use. Council has a significant decision to make. You're planning the community for 20 to 25 years, and the community needs jobs and housing, a range of housing options, and we want to be able to provide help on that. If you could go to the second map, that'd be great. So when you look at the overall area for Center Wellington, our little red rectangle there isn't very big. And it's interesting that Area B and Area C, everything's going to be developed in that area except for us. We're the only corner that isn't included. And it just seems to me to make sense to round that area out. So you're planning on 10 to 20 or years of development or more. I think this is a chance for me and my family and the local community, the folks that we hire, to have a chance at providing solutions for this. This is what I think the town's all about. We're growing, but we're still a small town. We need to support the local businesses. When I look at this, I'm going, if I don't get in now, I'm not going to have another crack at this. And I want to work with staff and the township council, but the plan's going to be set for the next, I don't know, decade or 2 decades. The only alternative to it, and I think that the fellow before me was alluding to it, was that I guess they have the option under the new Planning Act rules to come in a site-specific amendment or appeal it. We're not going to do that. That's not the way we work. We're not going to appeal anything. We're going to try to work with you. We think that the merits of what we're trying to bring together should rule the day in the end. From a locational perspective, I think the benefits of our site are we're close to public schools, future and existing. We're right next to the recreational center. And I think that with a little creativity between our site and the site to the north, you could provide another access through the trails system to go right into the back of the existing complex. And I firmly believe this, that being south of the river is the better place to be. And I think that's what this diagram is showing too. The majority of the development is south of the river. If you're going to rip up the road to do the servicing in the area, might as well get it all done at once and have the developers help. And we're prepared to do that. I think what you should do is double load Scotland. That's the way you want to do development. If you don't double load the road, it makes the servicing cost that much more. So I don't know who's going to be paying for this. I suspect in the end it's going to be the development community. But if it isn't, if you don't double load the road, you're just going to cause more tax increases for the municipality, for the taxpayers to pay for this. So I think that my site is as good as most, certainly in regards to agriculture, because it's all prime ag land around the area. I'm asking for something small, but it's big to me. It's about 5 hectares, represents less than 4% variation for the staff recommendation. I consider it a minor variation to the plan proposed by staff. I think it can easily be written into the resolution for the county, and I hope you support me. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you, Rob. Any questions for clarification from council? Councilor Craddock.
Thank you, and through you. Forgive me, Rob. I think in your last delegation, you kind of touched on the housing mix, for the vision that you had for the concept design. Do you mind just reminding us your thoughts on what might go onto that site?
Well, we want to try to, excuse me, we want to try to build housing that the young people can afford. Everything that the previous fellow said is what we're trying to look at. And we don't have a builder lined up yet. I don't know whether the boys are thinking they're going to get the approvals to the building or whether it's going to be a local builder, but that's what we're intending on doing. We're not going to go out of town. If we don't have to, we want to use the local builders to be able to build it. So that's what we want to do. Build near affordable housing, a mix of singles and townhouses probably. I don't know if we need to do anything more because I have to look at how the densities are going to work out on our site. But that's what we're proposing, something that's affordable, something where younger folks can move into and work with the local community. So,
Councillor Adams.
Thank you, through you, Chair. my question was exactly the same, just to repeat the vision. So thank you.
Any other things from council? Thank you, Rob, for your presentation. Okay, we're going to move down to item 10, consent items. Consent agenda items are considered routine in nature and voted on collectively. However, any member of council may request one or more items be removed from consent agenda for separate action. So I'm going to read the recommendation that the Council of Township of Centre Wellington approve consent agenda items 10.1 through 10.6. Do we have a mover for that? Councillor Adams, seconder on that. Councillor Wilton. Any further comments or questions as it relates to that? All those in favor? So move. Okay, so we're going to move down to consideration of reports. Item 11.1, telecommunication concurrence requests, 7446 Colburn Street, and we have a report from Brett Salmon.
Council has seen a few of these before, telecommunication requests. We have two tonight. The first one is for tower at 7646 Colburn Street in Elora. And as council have seen a few of these before, the process follows federal guidelines. And at the end of the process, after the public consultation, the municipality is asked to provide a letter of concurrence. And so council has two options. You can go along with the request to provide concurrence and instruct me to provide the concurrence letter, or you can deny concurrence, and then it puts it in the hands of the telecommunication staff at the federal level. So in this particular case, the notification requirements by the federal government have been followed. There's no objections, and the proponent of this tower is, I think they're at the meeting by Zoom, and they could answer any council questions. But again, the final decision for approving cell phone tower is up to the federal government. And so even if the township denied concurrence, it doesn't mean that a tower would not appear. My view is that in this case, there's no reason not to provide the concurrence.
Thank you, Brett. Councillor Wilton.
Thank you, Mayor Waters, and through you, and thank you, Brett, for the report. I have no problem with providing concurrence. I'm just curious, in I think the last paragraph, we have the absence of having a policy that allows delegation to staff to just make these decisions. So I'm just curious if that would be more efficient, because I imagine as we grow, we might see more and more of these requests, and just thinking it is a reasonable thing that seems staff could handle. So just curious about that. Thank you.
I can answer that. This it's come up from time to time, and frankly, there was a time period where we were not seeing any cell phone towers, so it never became an issue that was important enough. But in the last few years, we have seen several. So customarily, where a municipality does develop its own protocol, we would have notice requirements that could simply mimic the federal process, or we could develop something that was stronger. And then typically in those protocols, what is looked for is for the approval to be delegated to staff. What I would say is, hasn't happened yet in this municipality, but in some other municipalities, I know in the county and other places where the location of a communication tower can be quite controversial. So that's just something to think about. Part of the reason why we've continued to have it come to council for the concurrence, but we've yet to have significant objections to any.
Councillor McDonald.
Through you, Mayor Waters, and where this is going, the resident is on board with this. They were consulted. Can you clarify for me?
Would be best for the applicant to respond to that one.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Well, Yeah.
What I'm looking for is like notice went to the neighbors and.
It does. There's standard notification requirements in the federal package. It's related to the height of the tower, and so it's not often a significant number of people. But in this case, there weren't any objections raised.
Well, I could appreciate a policy. I do like that each one comes up individually, just so we can give residents the opportunity to weigh in at any time. So thank you.
Councillor Adams?
Thank you, through you, Mayor. I'm just curious, does staff look at this at all to make comment based on, like, there's certain, like, kind of scenic, I don't know, I'm trying to get the right words out here, landscapes that are, you know, like picturesque of our community. I know, like, when you come down, for example, Tower Street now, you see kind of like the hill, and you kind of do see the tower kind of sticking up in the background now. That wasn't really a part of the landscape before. Is there a view that, like, staff look at from that perspective in terms of just kind of how it affects that overall landscape of, like, some of our community?
No, we do not. Those things are exempt from any of our planning processes, so that's not something we consider. It's outside our jurisdiction, I would say.
And I'm not sure how much influence we'd have there on that. Any other comments or questions as it relates to this? Okay, so looks like we're leaning towards option one. So I'm going to read the recommendation that the Council of Township of Central Wellington provides municipal concurrence for proposed 65-meter self-supported telecommunication tower by SLI Towers at 7646 Colburn Street, Elora, and that the Managing Director of Planning and Development be authorized to prepare the necessary concurrence letter. Do you have a mover for that? Councillor Wilton, to have a seconder there. Councillor Craddock, any further comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? So moved. Do you want to take just a 5-minute break? Yes. Or do you want to wait till after this? No, we'll take a 5-minute break. So, okay, we'll be back shortly. Okay, welcome back, everyone. We're going to move down to item 11.2, Telecommunications Tower Concurrence Request, Cherry Hill Shopping Center, 800-840 Tower Street. You're back up there, Brett.
Thank you, Mayor Waters. Through you, this is another report similar to the previous one, so I won't bore you with what your options are again. In this particular case, this one is adjacent to or part of the Cherry Hill Shopping Center in South Fergus, and it is referred to as a 25-meter concealed densification monopole telecommunication tower. I think there's a similar one in the north end of Fergus, a couple of them actually, where it's just a pole. In this particular case, the proponent has provided the record of their consultation with owner of an adjacent plaza and how the response was dealt with, and believing that where it's proposed is the best site for it. The applicant's agent is on the Zoom call, I guess, to answer any questions. But in this case, again, we don't see any reason to deny concurrence.
Questions or comments for Brett? Okay, I'm going to read the recommendation. Option 1, that the Council of Township of Centre Wellington provides municipal concurrence for proposed 25-meter monopole telecommunications tower by Rogers Communication Canada Inc., Rogers, at 800-840 Tower Street South, Fergus, and that the Managing Director of Planning and Development be authorized to prepare the necessary concurrence letter. Do you have a mover for that? Councillor Welton, seconder on that. Councillor Evoy, any further comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? That's so moved. Let's move down to item 11.3, posted speed limit bylaw update, and we have a report from Adam Gilmore. Welcome, Adam.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Waters and members of council. So report IS 2024-30 includes an updated speed bylaw, and it repeals existing bylaw 2023-85. The updated bylaw brings into legal effect recommended speed limit changes outlined in the annual speed limit and traffic calming report, which was presented to council in April of this year. So I'd like to highlight a few changes in the bylaw that were not part of the April 2024 report. They include decreasing posted speed limit from 60 kilometers per hour to 50 kilometers per hour in South River Road. And that's from 180 meters east of Haylock Avenue to 185 meters west of Guelph Street, or where South River Road turns into Union Street. Also decreasing the speed limit from 50 kilometers per hour to 40 kilometers per hour on Union Street West. And that's from 185 meters west of Guelph Street to Tower Street. So these recommendations were made in response to concerns received from residents in this area, prompting township staff to assess the speed limits through these segments, which was done in accordance with our speed limit policy and technical approach. We're also going to be decreasing the posted speed limit from 80 kilometers per hour to 50 on the 7th line in the former township of Vermassa. In a 300-meter section, which kind of straddles a bridge in that area. So the reason for this change is we're getting ready to do some rehabilitation work on that bridge, and through the engineering work that was done, the engineers noted that the posted speed limit for the geometry of that bridge currently doesn't meet the safety design standards. So we're recommending to reduce it from 80 to 50, so it does comply with those standards. The report also provides an update on the township's 40 kilometer per hour neighborhood pilot program, which was completed in the York Street neighborhood of Elora between April and July of this year. And so we did speed monitoring before and after we rolled that pilot program out, and during the pilot program also. And the results were encouraging. So we saw a decrease in the 85th percentile speed from approximately 47 kilometers per hour to 43 kilometers per hour. So based on the observations, we think that this could be an effective way of reducing speeds in the township. And through our annual speed and traffic calming report, we will make we might look at further recommendations for other neighborhoods where we could implement 40 kilometer per hour neighborhoods. Thank you.
Thank you, Adam. Comments or questions? We'll start with Councillor Adams.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. So happy to see this report on here. I think it was about a year ago that we talked specifically about South River Road. And we had talked about the report it tool and encouraging residents to use that tool. So it's good to see it come back. I had a lot of people reach out when they saw it on the agenda and really encouraging us to make sure that this is passed, and had some questions in terms of the timing of the implementation if passed tonight. Some of these speeds. So if you can maybe just speak to the timing of the implementation, that'd be great.
Yep, thank you for the question, Councillor Adams. So through the mayor, so we will be implementing the changes with installing this new signage, and we'll be doing that before the end of this calendar year.
Councillor Wilton.
Thank you, Mayor Waters, and through you, thank you, Adam, for the report. I would echo Councillor Adams' comments. It's a really helpful way to look at things. I also would really appreciate the additional efforts around St. David Street North, around Woodhill Drive and the St. Joseph School Zone, which is, I know a lot of people are very concerned about that area, so appreciate all the work there. I'm just curious, and this might be a question more for Dan, but when we reduce the speed limits from 50 to 40 and things like that, it's fabulous, and signs go up, and the signs are probably enough for some people to slow down, but the real trick would be in enforcement. So I know I've had people still concerned on St. Andrew Street East towards the John Black School area, and they're not seeing any additional OPP officers out there anytime. So I'm just not sure how that conversation goes in terms of, can we get additional enforcement once we drop speed limits in certain areas? So thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Wilton. So just to respond to the last part of your comments there. So we are in communication with the OPP, and typically that happens when we're preparing the annual report in April. We typically meet with them in March, and we go through our recommendations with them to confirm that they can support areas where we're recommending enhanced enforcement as a traffic calming measure. So we do have discussions with the OPP. We also encourage people to reach out to the OPP with their concerns when they happen.
So yeah, is that the best step then, if residents are still seeing a lot of speeding or perceived speeding in their zone, to reach out to OPP directly themselves through the non-emergency number, obviously?
Yep. To answer your question, Councillor Wilton, through the mayor, absolutely. You know, we and that's the recommendations we make to folks also when we hear from them. You're welcome.
Councillor Evoy.
Thank you, through you, sir. Thank you. I am thrilled to see this report, and I'm thrilled to see us moving forward. And I heard you say that, we're considering more, and as we move forward, I can only speak to the streets that I'm well aware of that are certainly not limited to, but would include Black and Garfrax, East and West, and Provost, among some others that we've heard a great deal from in the last, since I've been in this chair. And when you say we're looking at it, can you give us any kind of indicator around when we'll look at the next bunch? Because obviously we're on a real roll here, and our number one priority is keeping our residents safe. So have you got an idea when we might consider round 2?
Yep, thanks, Councillor Evoy, through the mayor. So we're syncing this up with this annual reporting process. So I think we'll be coming back in April of next year with a recommendation to include perhaps another neighborhood, maybe another couple neighborhoods. Yep.
And how are you determining those? Is that based on the Connect CW or connection with the OPP, or what?
Yeah, so thanks, Councillor Evoy. So through this process, we want to take a data-based approach to it, and we want to use our judgment to try and implement measures where we think they're going to be effective. So we're actively out with our Black Cat speed monitoring devices, collecting data. We're also hearing from residents through the Report It tool on Connect CW. On the township's website, online Report It tool. And we kind of use all of that information to guide us in terms of making those recommendations.
Councillor McDonald.
Through you, Mayor Waters. Of course, I support the Black Cats because it is an excellent tool for getting an average speed. My question is, in our residential areas, can't we go to 40 in all our residential areas? Because it's looking like the pilot project is kind of going in that direction. And instead of having your time on all the individual residential streets, but maybe the streets like Coburn or South River Road, where they're more throughways, look at those separately. But in residential areas, couldn't we just go to 40 kilometers? I know other municipalities have. So I just thought I'd ask that.
Yep. Thank you, Councillor McDonald. Through the mayor, absolutely. We've heard from other municipalities who've been taking that type of approach. City of Guelph, for example, has been implementing 40-kilometer-per-hour neighborhoods. That's something we could certainly consider. I think I come back to kind of the data-driven approach. We want to implement it in areas where we think it's going to be effective. It's one step, right, amongst others, and one kind of tool in the toolkit for implementing traffic calming, trying to reduce speeds. So we are trying to take a measured approach to it and implement it in areas where we think it's going to be effective.
Councillor Jefferson.
Thank you, Mayor Waters. Through you. Just a question for clarification for the implementation. So if it was streets that were named back in April that you were going to be doing speed reductions on and that have not received signage as of yet, they are going to be receiving it by the end of the year this year? Thank you.
Yep. Thanks for the question, Councillor Jefferson. So through the mayor, so we have been working through a bit of a backlog in sign installations. I think we're now through implementing all of the recommendations from last year's update, and we are going to make efforts to implement all of the signage recommendations in this report by the end of this year. Yes.
Any other comments or questions for Adam? Thank you, Adam, for your report. I have a report or a recommendation in front of me that the Council of Township of Centre Wellington authorize the mayor and clerk to execute a bylaw to regulate speed in the Township of Centre Wellington and to repeal bylaw 2023-85 as outlined in report IS 2024-30, and that the Council of Township of Centre Wellington receives for information updates related to the 40-kilometer-per-hour neighborhood pilot program as outlined in report IS 2024-30. Do I have a mover for that? Councillor Wilton, seconder on that. Councillor Adams, any further comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? That's so moved. Thank you again. Move down to item 11.4, outdoor water use bylaw information report, and we have Dino, who will be speaking to this. Welcome, Dino.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, members of Council. We bring to you today the outdoor water use bylaw. It's on your docket tonight under bylaw 2466 as bylaw approval. Our current water restriction bylaw is 25 years old and unenforceable. It's out of date, and to recognize current water pressures, supply challenges, and potential for extended drought, a refresh is due. In addition, the outdoor water restrictions play a key role to water conservation efforts currently underway. To recognize all these drivers for change, an update was needed to ensure water use is responsible and effective in ensuring careful and diligent use of our outdoor water resources. Staff completed an extensive review to complete the recommendations for this update. The criteria included water use functions. For example, washing your car versus watering your vegetable garden. Time of use to better align with today's residential habits. And drought conditions and pressures that may be occurring on the resource or the water distribution system. A clear change to the bylaw is a tiered system approach. The tiered system is used in many other municipalities and allows for increased restrictions based on drought level or severity of distribution system interruption. To establish the tiered restriction that recognizes resource pressures caused through drought, the bylaw triggers are based on an established and provincially recognized program, namely the Ontario Low Water Response Program. The Grand River Conservation Area supports this program through coordination and response to low water conditions through what's called a low water response team. The township sits on this low water response team. Other members that sit on this low water response team include agricultural community, golf courses, water users like permit to take water users. The team meets as needed to review low water conditions. They review data. They review drought parameters, and if necessary, declare low water conditions for part or all of the Grand River watershed. So as you can see, this is a summary of the proposed water use restrictions framework. As you can see, we have delineated it into four program levels. Zero steady state, or zero is normal. So as we increase program levels, the restrictions become more restrictive. We also recognize some time of day use changes. So previously, it was very early, 5 to 7. We changed it to 6 to 9. Both AM and PM, so that it would be easy for people to remember, because the morning hours in the previous bylaw were different than the evening hours. We've also restricted irrigation systems to overnight hours, midnight to 6 a.m. And we delineate functions. So for example, like I said, washing your car as opposed to watering your grass, as opposed to watering a vegetable garden. There are others on here, including the supply of water to recreational decorative features. For example, a slip and slide or splash pad, something along those lines. It's with not the township splash pads. And of course, we do have new sod seed permits. That was an existing feature in our previous one. It allows for extended watering throughout multiple days at a cost and a permit to the township. And we have a permit for time shift exemption. So if your staff started a shift at 2 a.m. and needed to walk through your irrigation system, you don't want your sprinklers running at that time, they can adjust their timing accordingly. That is the change in front of you today, and happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Dino. Comments, questions for Dino? Councillor Craddock.
Thank you, through you. Just out of curiosity, how often the past couple of years have you seen level 3 conditions?
Great question, Councillor Craddock, and through you, Mayor. Never.
Oh, that's good to hear.
No, we haven't seen a 3 in many. I don't think I ever have. We did see a 1. We're in an extended period of level 1 for about 18 months, beginning in 2022 to about, maybe it was more like 24 months to about the end of 2023. And I don't believe we've seen a level 2 in this area. It has been experienced in other areas of the GRCA.
Love that answer. Thank you.
Councillor Evoy.
Through you, Mayor. Thank you. And thanks again to your team. I'm always happy to share that you guys caught a leaking thing in my house and saved us a lot of money. And we're really grateful to get the report telling us. So thank you so much. How are you pushing this out to the rest of our community, this information?
Great question. Thank you, Councillor Eboy. Through you, Mayor, this will be done through a lot of help from Kendra, through our media release. We are planning on posting signs similar to the ones you see entering Guelph, with various levels of restriction, but different than those, somewhat the same though, same idea. And through community centers where we get a large turnover of people, and primarily through radio, media, social media, I should say, and paper.
Any other comments or questions for Dino? Thank you, Dino, for that. We have a recommendation that the Council of Township of Centre Wellington execute a bylaw to promote outdoor water conservation. Do we have a mover for that? Councillor Wilton, a seconder on that. Councillor Evoy. Any further comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? So moved. Thank you again. Item 11.5, Settlement Area Boundary Expansion Recommendation Report. And we have a report from Brett Simon.
Thank you, Mayor Waters. Through you, this is a report that is recommending that Council adopt the recommended settlement area boundary expansions that were set out in report PLN 2024-35, which was the report presented to you on October 15th. And further, that we request that the County of Welling proceed with the official plan amendment to implement the recommended settlement area boundary expansion. Just by way of summary, I want to note that we've received, obviously, in the last couple of council meetings, several quality delegations from landowners and their consultants that make very good points about how an individual property owner's land would also meet all of the criteria for urban expansion. And that's acknowledged in my report that there could be other lands that meet the criteria. But again, I want to point out that we're constrained by the land need, and we have a process that requires a determination of land need. That's been done by the County of Wellington through Watson Associates, and this council sought us to develop alternate scenarios that sought to reduce or mitigate the amount of prime agricultural land or the amount of urban expansion. And that was done, and council adopted those recommendations on September 30th. And that is the basis for the boundary that we've chosen, the amount of land. So it isn't that some of these other parcels that have come forward don't meet the criteria or were excluded because they didn't meet the criteria. There are more land that meet the criteria than there is the need. And I just want to kind of reiterate for council some of what we're talking about in here in terms of the total number of requests that the county received. So you saw in your package at the October 15th meeting included an inventory of all the requests. And for Center Wellington, that totaled 973 hectares, or about 2,400 hectares, or 2,400 acres. And that was not all of the land, because the county only accepted requests and reported this in February, and they continued to receive requests subsequent to that date that added an additional amount of land up to 1,065 hectares. So no matter what, we're going to be at this situation where we have more land that meet the criteria than there is the need. And so we're bringing forward a recommendation. We've done an evaluation, and the evaluation results are in front of council. And we believe that the recommended boundary is the most appropriate boundary to be chosen at this time. And we're sticking with our recommendation from the last council meeting. I do want to point out a few things, because we have passed the date at which on October 20th, the 2024 PPS came into effect. So my report provides documentation of how our recommended boundary also meets the criteria that are set out in the PPS 2024, which are much less rigorous than in the current growth plan that we've used to evaluate all these parcels. I also want to say that we have county population and employment forecasts. The new PPS makes it clear that we can continue to use those forecasts. The land needs assessment identified the amount of land that we needed to the year 2051. And so that recommended settlement area boundary expansion is greater than the 20 years that the PPS now seeks. And we could go to as much as 30 years. But we're going all the way out to 2051 with the land need calculation. So we're more than meeting the 20-year requirement. It's close to 30 years. The PPS 2024 does not specifically adopt greenfield density targets and intensification targets, but policy 2314 requires the establishment of minimum intensification targets, and policy 629B and C support the development of minimum density targets. So the targets that we've created, we think are consistent with the PPS 2024. And again, the number of requests that we've received greatly exceeds the amount of land, and it would be easy to say yes to all of the requests that have been made, but we have a finite land need that's been identified And we have a council that's made it very clear that you want to mitigate that need and reduce the amount, which we've done somewhat by about 72 hectares. I do want to make a comment, though, about the population and employment forecasts. The PPS 2024 does take a different approach, and it does suggest that new forecasts that are put out by the Minister of Finance should be used for the development of forecasts, and that's been alluded to by one of the presenters tonight and a couple at the last council meeting. But it does go on to say that municipalities can continue to use the forecasts that were set out in the growth plan, and that's so county believes that it can carry on with the forecasts that were approved by the minister in July of this year that go to 2051. There will come a day when we're expected to update those forecasts, of course, as Mr. Gagliardi, I believe, pointed out. And I should say that those forecasts are significantly higher if you compare Wellington County and Guelph together, is the way they're presented in the new Minister of Finance forecasts. They are considerably higher than the forecasts that are in the growth plan. And we expect that there will be pressure on the county, once there be their decision to make, to utilize those forecasts at some future date. But clearly for now, we're able to continue to use the growth plan forecasts. One of the challenges with the new ministry forecasts is that they don't split Wellington County and Guelph. So we don't know what share of growth is going to be absorbed by the city, and we don't know what share is going to be absorbed by the county, let alone what Center Wellington's share of that growth would be. But again, there's no denying that they're significantly higher, to the tune of about 30,000, I think. Did the math, but I also want to point out at the last meeting there was some comments and requests about land parcelization, where we had not included complete parcels in the urban boundary. And there's no denying that it may be preferable to keep parcels intact when we add them to the urban boundary. It's clearly a policy not to, or policy to avoid or minimize fragmentation. And our suggestion is that that is an issue that's left up for the County of Wellington, planning and development staff to deliberate. They're aware, and they are the body, they have the agricultural consultants under retainer to review the agricultural impact of our proposed expansion, and they could deal their best to deal with the fragmentation issue. And it may, if they choose to add larger, the full extent of parcels in the urban boundary, then it will have to come with some kind of mitigating staging or excess land policy to go with it, because we then will be exceeding the land need based on our calculations. Although I think in most of the cases with this, particularly with respect to the community lands, if additional lands are added to complete the parcels, will still be under the county's calculated land need if those lands are added. Again, only for the community, not for the employment. So again, we believe that the boundary that we're recommending is the most appropriate boundary to comply with. It complies with the policies. We demonstrated how it meets the extensive criteria that the county set out in their February 2024 report, and we've established how it's consistent with the 2024 PPS. And I do want to acknowledge again, there would be other lands that would meet the same criteria. And so it would be, across the north end of Fergus, there are a number of parcels that are all, the services are there. There's no denying that. The same is said of the parcels that we're proposing to add. The services are all there. That was part of our analysis. So this is a difficult process. we've approached it from the positive point of view where we're saying why the boundary that we recommended meets the criteria. There's 973 hectares worth of requests, and I think it would be very difficult to go through each and every one of those parcels and provide a report to council on why wasn't my land included. So we've taken the positive approach of the lands that we've identified and are recommending, they meet the policies. So that's we're recommending moving forward with the boundary as proposed. Be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Brett. Comments, questions from council? Councillor Craddock.
I don't know if there's a question that'll come out of this, but more comment. Just listening to the delegations and their ask for us to put this off and give it some more consideration. That's fine, but I think you're operating a lot under our direction as well to fit in with our intensification goals, and so to hear that the staff are being irresponsible in their approach, I think we as a council need to take some of the heat that should. We're offering you the direction, and you're working within those perimeters. So apologies that you may hear that. Staff, I do still think we are on the same page that we should intensify over going out, but I feel like it's a lot of information, and I wouldn't be opposed to deferring to give it some more thought.
Councillor Avoy.
Through you, sir. Thanks to my colleague for sharing his thoughts. From everything I've seen, you guys, the staff have been very diligent and have responded, but perhaps not always in ways that, and I can't speak for every email ever sent, but the ways that authors may not have preferred. But I can tell you that everything that I've seen, our staff, and I'm going to stand up for them on this one because I think they've done a very good job trying to respond. I'm not sure that using the word irresponsible was towards the staff so much as to us if we didn't make the choices that this particular delegate was asking. So just to clarify, I don't think they were saying our staff were irresponsible.
Councillor McDonald.
Once this goes to county, is there an opportunity for the delegates to speak with county again for some more public input, or no?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
This is really the start of the process of developing the official plan amendments, not the end. So certainly we expect that, the county has to prepare an official plan amendment, make it available to the public and to the Minister of Municipal Affairs at least 90 days prior to county council making a decision. So, if it goes from here to the county, there will be public meetings required, opportunities for people to delegate at county council if they choose. And then before that amendment is adopted by the county, it's going to have to come back here again. And I'm not naive enough to think that it's not going to be, it has to go to all kinds of government agencies for commentary, Ministry of Transportation, whoever. And I'm not naive enough to think that there's not going to be suggestions for changes that come through this process. And it's going to come back here, and it might not be exactly the same as what we see today. And we're in the middle of a new PPS 2024 that only took effect on Sunday, October 20th, that the training for municipal staff only just came out last week. So there's a whole new set of policies. And the other twist is that with the new PPS comes the ability for applicants to make private applications to expand the urban boundary. And so some people whose lands we're recommending go in the boundary might say, I can go faster if I put in my own application. And some of the people whose land doesn't get in, council adopts the staff recommendation, they might turn around and file an application with us tomorrow. And we'll have to deal with that. And so I think there's still lots of time for people to delegate, and it will come back to this council for kind of final say before the county adopts it. That's unquestionable.
Councillor Adams.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. A couple comments, and then I think it might turn into a question. It's just a comment. I still have a little bit of concern with the employment lands at the south end of the South Fergus secondary plan. We talked a lot about the gateway. I'm repeating myself from previous meetings. So I'm really interested to hear what our tools are if this becomes approved, how we maintain that gateway that we spoke about. But most importantly, I think there's been a huge process to get here, and you guys have completed so much work. And at the same time, it's kind of at the start of another process. And the province certainly has not made any of that easy for us. A lot of this is coming because there is a housing crisis, and it's like a push to build. And there's so much involved in this complex process to get to the point of actually building the homes. So my question is, once, whatever gets approved in this final stage, sometimes at the end of the day, we have, we end up with like approved building permits and we still don't have builders building. Is there tools that we have already, or is there tools that we could look at during this process to make sure that once we have boundary expansions in place and we get to the point, how do we make builders build? And and if they're not building, is there tools that we could go back to, I don't know, bring in different?
Through you, Mayor Waters, that is a very good question. And so one of the things that staging policies are a requirement to go with the county OPA. But one of the things that the county and the township are looking at together, among the changes to the Planning Act, are a provision that makes, if you recall, a few weeks ago, we had a special meeting of council because draft approval on a subdivision was going to expire. And so prior to that point and with that particular development, the inclusion of an expiry date in the draft approval in the Planning Act was not mandatory. It was a regular practice of the County of Wellington, but throughout the province, it's not mandatory. The changes to the Planning Act make that mandatory. And we've also been given enhanced authority to create municipal servicing allocation policies. And so I think our biggest use is a carrot or a stick, I'm not sure, but will be that the draft approval, we will move to it expiring in 3 years instead of 5. County's already started to shift in that direction since the Planning Act was changed, and we are working with our legal counsel on a servicing allocation policy. So it will be use it or lose it. When you get a draft approval of a plan of subdivision, you will be expected to proceed with servicing and register that plan within 3 years, or you will lose your draft approval.
Thank you. That was a very comprehensive answer. Thank you very much.
Welcome.
Any other comments, questions from council? I'd like to compliment Brett, you and your staff, and obviously you've worked very well with the county as well to get us to this point. I would recommend that we move this forward as well. We have to start somewhere, and there's still the opportunity for the development community to, to speak at the county and that way in terms of whether they're in or out. It's a very difficult situation. We've talked about, you had indicated that we have requests up to 2,400 acres. That is a lot of land. And through council's wisdom and working with staff, we've suggested how to do intensification and how to grow the population from now to 2051 up to 56,000 people. That's minimally. But with the recommendation, if all those lands were to come in, 2,400 acres, that would be 100,000. So I think people need to be clear. So these decisions are not coming, without major considerations to where this community is growing or going. And so, yes, it would be nice to bring everybody in, but that's the implications. It's the difference between 56 and 100,000. It's not even that long ago that Guelph was 100,000. So that just tells you sort of the pressure on this community and the desirability of this community. The development community sees that, sees this community as a very desirable place to do their business. And I will thank you for all that attention. I really do appreciate that attention. But what we're trying to do here is still make sense of our community in terms of the population and what it looks like, and also do our job in respecting the wishes of the province and the county in terms of our growth numbers, and do it in a way that we can do it from a servicing side that makes sense, that is directed by our staff and by our community that way. We want to do it and we want to be, but we still want to be respectful of the development community because we do feel that. There are good stories here. Good stories last meeting, good stories this meeting. And in a perfect world, yeah, it'd be great to bring you all in, but but the numbers are real. 56,000, 100,000. That's the difference there. So I think we need to really be cognizant of that and what we want in our community and why we live in our community. So I'm going to read the recommendation. Again, thank you for your staff, and if you can thank Sarah and her group down there as well at the county. Really appreciate all the efforts. So I'm going to read the recommendation. The Council of the Township of Central Wellington endorse the recommended settlement area boundary expansion as set out in staff report PLN 2024-35, and that the Council of the Township of Central Wellington requests that the County of Wellington proceed with development of an amendment to the County of Wellington official plan as necessary to implement the Township's recommended settlement area boundary expansions. Do I have a mover for that? Councillor Evoy, seconder on that. Councillor Adams. All those in favor? So moved. Thank you very much for your presentation. And thank you, development community. Okay, I'm going to move down to item 11.6, branding and visual identity policy and guidelines. Report from our friend, Kendra.
Good evening, members of council and mayor. I'm here tonight to present a brief presentation on the branding and visual identity policy and guidelines. It's okay. So as the township grows, as we've seen tonight, it's essential that the branding and visual identity policy and related guidelines are followed to help our residents and businesses easily recognize the diverse range of programs, services, and information provided by our government. The policy outlines the importance in establishing a cohesive and recognizable branding identity for the township, and it also creates consistency. Okay, so the policy statement, as in the presentation here, says the township aims to build and maintain a consistent, distinct, and professional brand and image through the use of its official logo and associated images. The identity serves as a valuable asset, distinguishing our services from those of other organizations. This policy, approved by council, aims to ensure consistent visual representation across all communications, marketing materials, and community initiatives, enhancing public engagement and promoting a unified image that reflects the values and vision of Centre Wellington. Furthermore, it will provide guidelines for the appropriate use of logos, colors, typography, and imagery, fostering a sense of pride and belonging within the community. The purpose is to ensure that the township residents and businesses can easily identify and recognize. It also assists businesses and residents in recognizing the value of the services that they receive. It ensures that we are seen as approachable, transparent, and engaged, and it reinforces the township's reputation. The guidelines are that they help staff, members of council, and the public follow the established standards. Some of these examples are logos, the secondary brands, vehicle branding, templates, promotional items, email signatures, and imagery. And in conclusion, the policy is crucial for ensuring consistency and professionalism in all communication from the township. For staff and council members, it provides clear standards for visual representation, helping to reinforce a cohesive image that reflects the community's values. For the public, it enhances the recognition and trust, making it easier to identify official communications and services. And a strong, unified visual identity not only promotes brand awareness, but also fosters community pride and engagement, ultimately supporting our goal to effectively serve and connect with our residents. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Kendra. Comments, questions for Kendra? Councillor Wilton.
Thank you, Mayor Waters, and through you. Thank you, Kendra. I think everything's great and fully support the branding policy. I just have one quick question. I might have missed it. I believe in the original design of the logo, the 5 points represented the original 5 municipalities, and I'm just not sure that's in there. And if maybe it just add a sentence to say it is in there. If I missed it, my apologies.
I can take a look and then get back to you on that. I can revise that if not.
Thank you. As long as I'm correct.
You are correct. Yes.
Thank you.
Councillor Adams.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. Thanks for the presentation. Also, agree with everything here. You had mentioned templates. Would that include like a council presentation template, like a standard template? I think that would be really valuable, especially as people tune into the meetings online. It's like, I think if we had one standard template that was like from staff versus could distinguish between like from delegations and different things, like you're constantly seeing that same template, I think would be really effective as well.
Through you, Mayor. We do have set templates on our intranet that we offer for people. I know that some of our staff are, they like to kind of go outside the box or find their new way of doing things. So it's not set in stone that you have to use those templates. We just have them on the intranet for people to use them if they wish. But if that's something you support, like we can recommend to staff to go on there, but yeah. Okay, thank you.
Any comments, questions from council? Okay, thank you, Kendra. I have a recommendation that the Council of Township of Centre Wellington adopt the branding and visual identity policy as presented in report CAO 2024-18. Do I have a mover for that? Councillor Ivor, seconder on that. Councillor McDonald, all those in favor? So moved. Okay, we'll move down to item 11.7, social media policy and guidelines. Welcome back.
Thank you. Let's have another brief presentation as well. Oh, good one. The one on the intranet. You didn't see that one. Okay, so the existing social media policy was adopted in 2015, and while it's effectively served the township over the years, the growth of online engagement necessitates a review to ensure it meets the current needs. The township number of social media accounts has also increased, along with significant rise in followers, content volume, and public interaction on these channels. So we recommended updating the policy. And as the township's social media presence evolves, it's essential to establish clear standards for content creation, account management, and online interactions. And this updated policy also outlines expectations for maintaining a respectful environment across all our digital channels, fostering a safe and respectful space for members of council, township staff, and community members. So just on the policy statement here, there's 3 separate areas. So we're dedicated to maintaining open and transparent communication with residents through various tools, through social media, and by leveraging social media, the township demonstrates its commitment to providing the public with timely, accurate, accessible, transparent, and accountable information. The township will actively promote the use of social media platforms as a means for fast two-way communication about our programs, services, and news in the community. And specific individuals will be authorized to use social media in an official capacity. The township also promotes the use of social media platforms as an efficient and coordinated approach and coordinating all township business to residents and community partners. And this is about sharing information and also making sure that it's through creative and strategic ways. The policy will apply to Township of Center Wellington employees and members of council who make public statements on township social media platforms that discuss, share, or comment on the township. And it also outlines best practices for personal use by employees and elected officials. And this is basically to protect the township and affiliate divisions with a social media platform's reputation. And it also ensures consistency and professionalism in how the township and its employees communicate. It also provides employees and members of council with clear usage guidelines and acceptable corporate and personal use of social media platforms. It protects employees of a township from any abusive, discriminatory, harassing, and demeaning comments that may be received. It outlines the official social media tools that the township has adopted, and it just provides protocol for around monitoring and administration for staff. Okay, the guidelines provide an overview of approved practices for creating content, posting, and working with social media platforms. And it just assists everyone to understand the risks that come with being on social media. So we just went through a little bit of the code of conduct. I'm not sure if we need to read everyone, but I'm sure that you've each taken a look at it and understands. And if you don't, please feel free to ask any questions at the end. And then the public contact is great. Right now, we have a lot of people that are very active on social media, and we love that about our social media. It allows for everyone to have discussions around what we're doing and programs that we're offering, and we get a lot of great ideas from the public on how we can make things better and how we can enhance our communication. But we also reserve the right to remove inappropriate, inaccurate, irrelevant, or unproductive content. So when I say inaccurate, I just don't mean that if they put it and we don't agree with it. What I mean is if we're feeling like, well, obviously, if we're getting this kind of information, and it gives us an opportunity to make sure that we can inform people on how the decisions are made or why we do things the way we do. But if we are receiving a number of comments that aren't fair to staff or to members of council, that's when we would look at moving the conversation offline, because just because they don't agree with us online doesn't mean we can't work with them offline. So we'll try and do that first, of course. And just in conclusion, the social media policy and guidelines are essential for staff, members of the public, and members of council, to ensure consistent and effective communication across all of our digital platforms. And it helps protect the integrity of the township by providing clear expectations. It clarifies our roles and responsibilities in managing official accounts and engaging with constituents. For the public, it fosters trust and facilitates open dialogue. Embracing social media enhances community engagement. It keeps our residents informed and connected. And overall, a well-defined social media strategy strengthens the township's relationships with its constituents and supports our goal to serve the community effectively. And I'll take any questions.
Thank you, Kendra. Councillor McDonald.
Through you, Mayor Waters, when you say employees and members of council conduct, does that also include committee members?
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you.
Councillor Adams.
Thank you. Through you. This is something that kind of still confuses me, but is the proper term Twitter, or should we be updating everything to X?
Yeah, we can update that to X. Yeah.
All right. Thanks.
Any other comments, questions from council? Thank you, Kendra. I'll read the recommendation that the Council of Township of Centre Wellington adopt the social media policy as presented in report CAO 2024-19. Do I have a mover for that? Councillor Wilton, seconder, Councillor McDonald. Any further comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? So moved. Thank you. 11.8 hybrid electronic meeting policy, 1-year review. A report from Carrie O'Kane.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Waters. Last year, around this time, Council adopted the hybrid policy and requested we review it within a year. So we are bringing it back with a few minor adjustments. We're suggesting removal under the heading procedures, convening and reconvening meetings, that be removed, as it is not necessary for us to conduct a roll call. That would have been there in order to monitor the number of times members of council join a meeting remotely, and we are not heading in that direction, so we can easily remove that. I also noticed and would like to note that there's one additional amendment to make under responsibilities of members of council and advisory committees to remove the phrase during roll call and add to at the start of the meeting. And again, that removes all references to roll call. I missed it in my original report. Thank you.
Thank you. Carrie, comments or questions for Carrie? Councillor Adams.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor. Great report. I have no concerns with that as written, but I did want to acknowledge that I do appreciate, like with the new policy, the opportunity to kind of like have it kind of play out and be able to kind of bring back and assess whether there is any revisions or anything needed, either from like the administration side or the way it's been working for council. So I just really liked that process and no concerns with the report.
Councillor Wilton.
Thank you, Mayor Waters. And same, no criticism or anything. I just want to actually comment that I really appreciate the opportunity to join in hybrid. I have taken advantage of it a few times when I've been traveling for work, and it works extremely well. So I appreciate being able to join in from when I'm away. So thank you.
Councillor Evoy.
Thank you. I'm going to say the same thing. I really appreciate it. I think many of us had a pretty clear idea that we were going to be mature and responsible around it, even though there may have been some fears around everybody attending all the time online. We've been very diligent. I also really appreciate the extension, possibly not in this moment, but looking at it from a staff lens and inviting more levels of people to show that they are as responsible as we suspected they were the day they joined our teams. So thanks so much for the hard work.
Any other comments, questions? Okay, thank you, Carrie, for that report. I'll read the recommendation that the Council of Township of Centre Wellington adopt the amended hybrid electronic meeting policy as outlined in report COR 2024-60 dated October 28, 2024 from the Manager of Legislative Services and Municipal Clerk. Do I have a mover for that? Councillor Adams, seconder on that. Councillor McDonald, any further comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? So moved. Okay, now we're going to move down to item 11.9, amendments to Procedure Bylaw 2021-31. And I'll invite Carrie back again.
Thank you. It's back. Staff's bringing forward the proposed amendments to the procedure bylaw as presented in April 2024. I've received some informal feedback from members of council regarding using the consent agenda, which I believe has been quite successful in dealing with routine matters effectively and efficiently, and bringing forward complicated matters for information as information items prior to making a decision and conducting public engagement prior to council's consideration. Some of those minor amendments, I'll remind you, include updating the electronic meeting provision, including the consent agenda and the changing the order of business to include the land acknowledgement and the consent agenda. We made an adjustment to the notice provision for advisory committees to align with current practices. We did reduce the time and limiting restrictions on the number of opportunities a delegate may appear for efficiency purposes. We've also aligned the curfew for meetings with committee. And I guess that's it. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Open for questions. Council Wilton.
Thank you, Mayor Waters, and through you. Thank you for the report and including both the track change version and the kind of new version as it would be. My only question, well, I might have a couple, but the main question I have is changing the curfew from 3 hours to 4. I do think it's still aspirational that we should be efficient and timely with our time. I do think having long meetings does create a barrier from a DEI perspective. So, and we often add on a closed meeting before a meeting. So we're actually here, we're already here for longer than 3 hours, even if the curfew was that. So I'm just not convinced that that's a change we want to make at this time. I'd prefer to see us try to keep things moving along in a nice snappy way. So that'd be my only question and comment there. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wilton. Councillor Adams.
I didn't think I had my hand up, but I'll say something. Thank you, through you. I was just, the consent agenda, I agree, it's been working really well. I am wondering if there's anywhere within a policy, or maybe I've missed it here, where I know it like kind of refers to like an information report. Was that, I think, in here? Like if we can just kind of like work on maybe defining what that means. I think most times we've seen that, and like I think that's why we're not pulling a lot of items. But I think the odd time that there has been reports in there where there has been some budget implications and stuff shown. So I think those are the ones where I would say that would, in my view, would not typically kind of fall under a consent agenda. There is obviously the tool that allows us to pull that out if we so think that that doesn't belong there. But I'm just wondering if just providing a little bit more, I don't know if it's a definition in the beginning or something. I would leave that to you, but just kind of defining what those information items are would be helpful.
Yes, through you, I think we can do that, but I think we have also learned through this process, we're starting to catch on what items are truly for information purposes and routine, and what might simply be for information but are have financial impacts or have other implications. So I can certainly look at defining it better, but I think we're starting to understand where that line is, and of course if we think something's routine and council doesn't, there's always the opportunity to speak to it, and but I do think we're sort of starting to get where that line is.
Thank you, Councillor Adams. Councillor McDonald.
Under 6.7 delegations, reducing it to 5 minutes. I know with the urban planning, we have had a lot of delegations, but it hasn't always been that way since we've been on council. And so I kind of like to keep it at 10 minutes is my preference. However, if we see there's a lot of delegations on one subject, then the opportunity to move it down in time. Is that a possibility, or you prefer to move it to 5? And then we could ask, could we move it to 10? At each time.
Through you, that's a great compromise. We always try for the 5 minutes with the opportunity to extend. It's very rare for the chair to cut somebody off right at 5, but
I don't cut anybody off. I don't cut anybody off.
But we would like to see, we find, and it's becoming an industry standard, that if you set the expectation at 5, people come prepared, come ready, and deliver, rather than set their timer and take up the full 10 minutes. But that is definitely a compromise that I could work in, where we set it at I think that's something we could do, but we always have to try for the 5 minutes, just in the interests of efficiency and effectiveness.
Did I see your hand, Councillor Evi?
No.
Okay, sorry. Councillor Adams.
Thank you, through you. I was really hesitant to see the elimination of the committee of the whole. I think staff have done a really great job at bringing us some information bringing us reports for information with like time to come back with before the final recommendation. So with that, I'm not going to push for any changes or anything at this time. So I do appreciate the way that we've all been able to work together on that to ensure that ourselves as well as the public have the time to process the information before making decisions. One question in terms of I think it's in section 4.14, in terms of the timing of when we see previous council minutes appear. I'm just wondering if I could get clarification on that. And I'm just kind of curious why we don't always see, why tonight, for example, did we not see the previous council meetings minutes tonight for approval?
Through you, it's because I take the minutes and I develop the minutes, and it's very, very difficult for me within 2 weeks to turn them around. We try, but we're also doing advisory committees and 2 council meetings a week. It's very difficult for me to get them turned around because I do them myself. If we had a recording secretary as well as ourselves, it would be easier, but it's because I do them myself.
Just, a comment that it would be, I hear that completely, and I appreciate that. I didn't know if there was any other reason logistically or how it kind of goes through. So it was pure curiosity, and I totally appreciate that. And on the other side, I can see, and maybe in a discussion that we're having coming up later on an agenda, where it would be useful to have those as we walk into the next meeting. But I completely hear where you're coming from. Thank you.
Any other comments, questions from council as relates to this? Okay. Thank you, Carrie. I'm going to read the recommendation that the Council of Township of Centre Wellington authorize the Mayor and Clerk to execute a new procedure bylaw and repeal bylaw 2021-31 as outlined in Report Core 2024-59 from the Manager of Legislative Services and Municipal Clerk, and that the staff prepare a schedule of meetings for 2025 as directed by the Council. Do I have a mover for that? Councillor Craddock, seconded by Councillor Wilton. Any other further comments or questions? Councillor Wilton.
Thank you, Mayor Waters. I would like to suggest an amendment, which I believe is friendly, to leave the curfew at 3 hours.
Why don't we just say as amended, and I'll grab it. Can we just do that?
That's fine with me. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to stick the word as amended.
And I'll read it again.
Do you see where I stuck it in there?
No.
Bylaw as amended. And then we can put
As amended?
As amended to maintain the existing curfew. How about that?
Maintain existing curfew. Okay.
Which we're going to have to extend, by the way.
Okay. Yeah. It's really kind of goes against what we were trying to do here. Anyways, recommended that the Council of Township of Centre Wellington authorize the Mayor and Clerk to execute a new procedure bylaw as amended to maintain existing, existing curfew and repeal bylaw 2021-31 as outlined in Report Core 2024-59 from the Manager of Legislative Services and Municipal Clerk, and that the staff prepare a schedule of meetings for 2025 as directed by Council. And so we had a first. Do you agree to that? The first and the second, or do they agree to those? Are okay with those changes? Yep. Okay. Any further comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? So moved. Thank you very much. Thank you for that plate discourse on that item. Okay, bylaw number 12. Bylaws, bylaw 2024-64, a bylaw to amend the Township of Centre Wellington zoning bylaw 2009-045 is amended to change the zoning of certain lands from A to A 34.7 and A to A 34.8. A bylaw 2024-65, a bylaw to govern the procedures of council and committee meetings to repeal bylaw 2021-31. 2024-66, a bylaw to promote outdoor water conservation. Next, 2024-67, bylaw to regulate speed in the Township of Centre Wellington and repeal bylaw 2023-85. Recommendations that bylaw 2024-64 through 2024-67 be read a first, second, and third time and pass, signed by the mayor and clerk and the corporate seal affixed. Do you have a mover for that? Councillor Jefferson, seconder on that. Councillor Adams, any further comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? So moved. So we're down now to notice of motions, and I'm going to move from here. Yep, step down. Oh, yes, we have to extend.
Curfew? Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I'll just read that extension and then all right, somewhere here. Okay.
To just adjust the time.
With the Council of Township of Centre Wellington in accordance with Section 7.7A Procedure Bylaw 2021-31, having reached the 3-hour maximum of council meeting, hereby extends the meeting curfew by what time is it?
1 hour to 9:30.
To 9:30. Do we have a mover for that? Councillor Wilkin, since you, yes, Councillor Craddock, seconder. Any further comments, questions? Seeing none. Oh, sorry, go ahead. Oh. Okay, sorry. All those in favor? So moved. Okay. We're going to go down to notice of motions. So I'm going to vacate for a little bit. Do you need this computer?
I don't believe so. I have papers.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Notice of reconsideration and subsequent motion has been brought forward by Councillor Wilton. However, before the proposed motion can be considered, Council must first agree with a 2/3 majority to waive the procedural requirement for giving notice and agree to reconsider the previous decision to Council adopted at the October 15th, 2024 meeting to endorse a new outdoor refrigerated multi-use surface with mechanical and storage buildings for Bissell Park. If agreement is obtained to waive the notice provision of Procedure Bylaw 2021-31 for reconsideration, and agreement is achieved to reconsider a previous decision, Council must either amend the previous decision or rescind it and consider a new action. The purpose of reconsidering a vote is to permit correction of hasty, ill-advised, or erroneous action, or to take into account added information or a changed situation that has developed since the taking of the vote. Is everybody clear? I'm going to read the motion. Motion number 1 reads that the Council of Township of Centre Wellington waives the requirement for giving notice of a notice of motion to reconsider pursuant to Section 7.2 of Procedural Bylaw 2021-31 in order to reconsider the decision of Council that was passed on October 15th, 2024 regarding the Bissell Park multi-use pad, given the deadline of the Community Sport and Recreation Fund grant application. And that Council rescinds the decision of October 15th, 2024 to support a new outdoor refrigerated multi-use surface with mechanical and storage buildings and a new option be considered. Everybody clear? If anybody wants to speak to those motions, now would be the time.
Just clarification, I don't think you've read motion 2.
No, I'm doing it in one at a time.
That was, okay.
No, please go ahead, whatever you have to say, Councillor Adams.
Thank you. I'd like to declare, I'd like to state a point of order.
Okay, and can you explain your point of order, please?
Yes, I'd like to do a point of order, actually, both on the validity of both the motions before us. In addition for asking us to waive the notice requirement on the notice of motion from our procedural bylaw, as per section 3.8 in our procedural bylaw, I'd like to say that there is a deviation or a departure from the rules set out in our bylaw.
While you're looking it up, we'll ask you to.
I'm not looking it up. I'm looking at my notes.
Your notes, sorry, that's what I meant.
So my point of order is to contest the validity of this motion. Current motion asks council to waive procedure and to reconsider and rescind the decision of council at its October 15 meeting as per our procedural bylaw. In motion number 1, it's asking to amend the decision. And in motion number 2, as per section 7.2 of our procedural bylaw, a reconsideration states that it can either amend or rescind, not both. In addition, section 7.2 states that a reconsideration of a portion of a resolution shall not be permitted. Motion 2 does just this, and I note that a reconsideration is not amendable. So, Chair, I respectfully ask that the validity of this motion be looked at as it complies with our procedural bylaw, which is the fundamental document regarding our corporate governance. I truly believe that the concerns by our fellow councillors can be addressed through different means. And with this, I respectfully ask for a ruling on my point of order.
Thank you so much for sharing. And before I make a ruling, I'm going to ask for a short recess, and I'm going to meet some staff to go over your motion. Thanks. We'll take 5. Thank you for your patience. It's really important that I made sure I did this 1,000% correct. So I wanted to double check with our incredible staff. Okay. Councillor Adams, I believe the motion is in order. With all due respect, I've reread section 7.2, and I feel that the motion 1 absolutely complies with section 7.2. However, I would be open to breaking up motion 1 into 3 separate sections. 1, waiving the notice. 2, a motion to reconsider. And 3, rescind and amend.
Respectfully, through you, I would actually like to request an appeal to council on this. I definitely read particularly section 7.2A differently, which clearly says a reconsideration of a portion of a resolution shall not be permitted. We have no mention here about the addition of the climate change coordinator perspective that was amended at the previous meeting. And then it goes on to say that such reconsideration can either amend the previous decision or rescind it. So I've always read, it doesn't say may, it's like either or. So I would move to request an appeal. And
just in response to what you said, I understand, and we'll move on to the next section. I read it as being, we are rescinding the entire motion and recreating a new one. So it's not a portion, because we are rescinding it in its entirety.
Respectfully, I would request it appealed.
100%. So we move on to the next piece, which is a member may appeal the ruling of the chair to council or committee, which will then decide whether to uphold the decision or overturn the decision without debate by way of a majority vote of the members present. And so that's where we're at. So at this point, is there anybody that's unclear? I see some shaking heads. I'm going to look to staff for guiding me on the way to answer these. I believe I saw Councillor McDonald first.
Chair, I'd just like to, are we talking about the appeal that Jen has put forward?
No, we're not voting on the appeal. We're voting on her motion, which was...
You're voting on the appeal of your
about
decision.
to my decision, which supports her, which goes against her preference. So she asked, number 1, she's number 1 and 2 in this case. She's saying that it's not a valid motion. To Councillor Wilton's is not valid. I've read it and say it is. Now we are voting on whether or not you agree that it is or that it isn't. Do you agree with the chair's decision or not? So you're voting if you agree with the chair's
decision, and only because I called AMC.
We're not allowed to discuss. We're not allowed to discuss. So what we are going to do is take a vote. You'll raise your hand. Councillor Wilton, I believe you had a question, and then Councillor Craddock.
Mine was the same question as Councillor McDonald.
Okay, Councillor Craddock.
I think just clarification on your point and to yours, just if you both could explain it further so I know. Making
I don't think we're allowed. Are we allowed at this point?
Through you, it has the chair's decision has been challenged. Therefore, we go immediately to a vote to either uphold the decision of the chair or overturn that decision. That's all where we're at right now. That must be done first.
My decision is that it is that Councillor Wilton brought us a valid motion. Okay. So you are agreeing or disagreeing with me.
Fair enough.
So do you need to call the vote, Madam Clerk, or can I?
You can. It's your.
Okay, so I'm going to look at you all. Raise your hand. I'll reiterate. Raise your hand if you agree with me that Councillor Wilton's motion is valid. If you agree with me that Councillor Wilton's motion is valid, you will raise your hand upon the vote. Is that a question or a voting? No. Is everybody clear still? You are raising your hand if you agree with me that it is a valid motion. Please vote now. 3 voted with me. That means it carries, correct? Because we have a majority with 4.
Well, you're voting on your own. Yes, that's 4.
Is that correct?
It's yeah.
Pardon? Sorry, is there something that we need to share?
I mean, I would call opposed.
Okay, all opposed?
Sorry, I'm trying to.
It's okay. 2?
Motion
So carries. This is considered a valid motion. Okay, so we look to motion number 2. Motion number 1, we're going back again. We're going to vote on it. Sorry, I apologize, guys. It's been a lot. And for the record, not very commonly done. Okay, so I'll start over. Motion number 1 says that the Council of Township of Centre Wellington waives the requirement for giving notice of a notice of motion to reconsider pursuant to Section 7.2 of Procedural Bylaw 2021-31 in order to reconsider the decision of council that was passed on October 15th, 2024 regarding the Bissell Park multi-use pad, given the deadline of the Community Sport and Recreation Fund grant application, and that council rescinds the decision of October 15th to support a new outdoor refrigerated multi-use surface with mechanical and storage buildings and a new option to be considered. All in favor? No, we don't vote again. Sorry, kids. I need a motion. I need a mover first, please. Councillor Wilton, obviously. Seconder? Councillor Jefferson. All in favor? Sorry, discussion, go ahead.
For discussion. Obviously, I have some issues with the way that this notice of motion was put forth. I think that our procedural bylaw that we looked to today is, again, one of our fundamental pieces in terms of like our governing rules, along with like our provincial legislation. And I think that we've had this issue isn't something that has come new to us. We've had numerous reports on this item over the years, and I will not be voting in favor of waiving the procedural bylaw on this notice for option 1.
Do you, Councillor Evoy, Deputy Mayor Evoy, I've spent the last week since this agenda came out doing a lot of research. Our rules go all the way up to Privy Council. Those are the rules that we follow in this chamber. And I'm not willing to waive the rules. I had to wait 30 days for a notice of motion about a bridge. This is not an emergent situation. This is precedent setting, and I find it divisional in this chamber. I don't find it validates waiving the 30 days at all, and I will not be supporting it.
Unfortunately, I wasn't able to attend the previous meeting where this decision was made. And when that agenda had come out, I had concerns, and I think they echoed a lot of Councillor Wilton's in terms of environmental impact, the costs associated. But I did have ample time, and now even more time to look at those, and I think my concerns have been addressed. So I was planning, to be frank, to vote for the third option at the last meeting, which would have been the covered refrigerated pad. And I don't want to see it. It's unfortunate that it went to 2. I think we're leaving money at the table because they're very similar options, but we're now missing a roof where we could have potentially got that through the grant. I thought if there was an avenue through this to get back to 3, rather than the proposed motion that may come, I would have opened it up for discussion again, or been on the side of opening it up. But no, I think we should stick with 2 or and look for avenues to get that roof on there.
We're going to go in line of order.
Thank you.
Councillor McDonald. Sorry.
Through you, Mayor, Deputy Mayor Evoy. I also align with Councillor Craddock there on the option 3. The option 2 that I did support is a roof later. So I already know we can add that in.
Yeah,
And-
we sorry guys, we need to stay online with regards to the motion, with all due respect to council. I'm going to reread that just to reiterate so we stay on track and see if anybody else has any comments before we take a vote. That council rescinds the decision of October 15th, 2024 to support a new outdoor refrigerated multi-use surface with mechanical and storage buildings and a new option to be considered. So we're not discussing the new option, we're discussing rescinding it at this point. So does anyone else have any comments on this matter? Go ahead, Councillor Adams.
Thank you. And I just wanted to bring kind of focus on my previous comment in the beginning of, or sorry, in the time of the meeting where we talked about the procedural updates and having the minutes and the resolutions before us, because that's what we're like voting on right now is rescinding that decision. And that decision was amended at that meeting to include like the climate, to have the new climate change coordinator, which I think was a really, I believe it was.
I'm sorry, clerk. It was amended.
Well,
So, okay, guys, we're going to stay in order here. If you like, we can take a minute while you're speaking and look it up. Go ahead, Councillor Adams.
And so therefore, that was where I was bringing up the reconsideration, that a portion of a resolution would not be permitted, which is very clearly in 7.2. So this is where I was saying that having those resolutions before us when we're debating these types of things would be helpful. Anyways, I think.
Agreed, and lesson learned as we go forward for sure. So we were looking up to check whether or not it was. I honestly can't speak to it. So you don't by any chance have it in front of you, do you, sir? No. Okay. So at this point, you have a choice. I will absolutely honor you the moment. Do you want us to wait to find that? Or are you ready to move forward to the vote? Okay. We are now moving forward. We have a first and a second. All in favor of rescinding motion number 1, which says we're rescinding the original motion. All in favor? Do I vote? 3. So it's 3-3, which means it's a tie, which means it. No, do we need 2/3 for this?
4 to pass.
Right. So sorry, guys. I thought it was 4 for the next one. I apologize. This is all new. Everybody knows I've been going through a lot. I apologize.
Just ask for a show of hands again.
Show of hands one more time.
In favor?
Yep. In favor, 1, 2, 3. All opposed, 1, 2, 3. That does not carry because we didn't get 4, so it defeated. All right. We are moving on to motion number 2.
No, we're not.
No, we're not.
We're calling the mayor back in.
We're calling the mayor back in, and I'm going home. Holy cow, could I have...
Okay, confirmatory bylaw. A bylaw to confirm the actions of council. Recommendation that the bylaws 2024-68 to confirm the proceedings of council at its meeting held October 28, 2024 be introduced the first, second, and third time and passed in open council. Do you have a mover for that? Councillor Craddock. Seconder on that. Councillor Jefferson. Any comments or questions? Seeing none. All those in favor? So movement. Move to adjourn this meeting. Councillor McDonald, seconder on that. Councillor Adams, all those in favor? So moved. Thank you very much. Have a good evening.